Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly fascinating narrative. It's a short story that just perfectly captures the essence of suspense and deep, unspoken emotion. We're going to look at a suspenseful Kahani Ki Jalak, a glimpse of a story that takes us on an absolute emotional roller coaster in just a few short paragraphs. The way the source material weaves tension and romance together is honestly seamless, and I literally cannot wait to break down exactly how it achieves this. So grab your metaphorical seatbelts because we are jumping right into the drama.
Okay, let's dive into this. Just imagine walking into a room and finding a letter with this exact, chilling opening line. If you are reading this, it means I have gone far away from you. And oh man, to make matters infinitely worse, there are literal blood stains scattered across the paper. I mean, your heart drops, right? Your mind is just racing. But what if the person who wrote those horrifying fatalistic words was standing right in front of you, completely unharmed? Well, that is the brilliant, heart-stopping hook of our story today, and it immediately sets a gripping, intense tone. Section 1. A Deep, Unspoken Love. Let's look at the backstory of our characters, Ronak and Bipasha.
So, the source material is remarkably specific about the nature of Raunak's affection here. This isn't depicted as your standard, over-the-top cinematic romance. The text explicitly calls it out as something far, far deeper. It wasn't some cheap, filmy love, no. It was a profound, transformative emotion. Raunak literally considered Bipasha to be his very breath. Just seeing her smile completely made his day. It's this pure, almost agonizing kind of devotion, mostly because it remains entirely hidden.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the heartbreaking internal conflict it shows. Raunak's reality was super complex. On one hand, he is deeply, completely in love with her. But fighting against that is this paralyzing fear. He is absolutely terrified that if he actually confesses his feelings, he might lose his best friend forever. It's that classic, devastating internal battle. He ultimately chose the safety of silence over the massive risk of honesty.
Section 2. The Blood-Stained Letter. And here is where things take a dark turn.
The author uses the setting to absolute perfection here. We start with a heavy, dramatic rainstorm pouring down on the city, perfectly reflecting the incoming emotional storm. Then, minutes later, Bipasha enters Ronak's room. Just a moment after that, her eyes land on an old diary sitting right there on his desk. She opens it and boom! Here is the climax of this sequence. A letter falls out. The handwriting is undeniably Raunak's, but, and this is the terrifying part, it's dotted with these dark red stains, blood. Notice how incredibly fast the tension just escalates in a matter of moments.
The contents of that letter are just an absolute gut punch. As she reads, she sees Raunak confessing that loving her has been the most beautiful yet painful part of his entire life. And then comes the fatal blow. Tonight, I am going down a path from which I may never return. Put yourself in Bipasha's shoes for a second. Her hands are physically trembling holding this paper. The text notes her heart is just hammering wildly against her ribs.
She is staring at actual blood. She's reading a literal goodbye note. And she screams out the one agonizing question that's echoing in all our minds right now. Raunak, what is this? Why are there bloodstains? Where are you going? What happened to Raunak? The sheer, suffocating panic in the narrative is absolute at this point.
Section 3. The Truth Revealed. Okay, let's take a breath, because things are about to shift entirely.
The contrast here is incredibly stark, and honestly, it's kind of humorous once you realize what's actually happening. In the room, you have Bipasha, right? Trembling in absolute terror, practically hyperventilating, imagining the worst tragedy imaginable. But walking out of the kitchen, Raunak calmly strolls in with his usual warm, sweet smile, casually holding 2 cups of hot tea. He is perfectly, completely fine. No tragedy, no doom, just tea.
And this brilliantly illustrates how a totally mundane, albeit slightly dramatic, reality can create a terrifying misunderstanding. Look at the logical breakdown of the steps Raunak actually explains to her. Step 1. Last week, he was out buying Bipasha her absolute favorite chocolate pastry. Step 2. He jumps in to save a little girl from an accident on the road. Heroic, right? Step 3. He gets some minor injuries in the process, which completely explains the blood on the paper. Step 4. Being highly emotional in the moment and thinking he might actually not survive this minor scrape, he sits down and writes this incredibly dramatic farewell letter. And then, well, he miraculously survives, totally forgets about the whole shebang, and just leaves it tucked inside his diary.
Section 4. A Promise of Devotion. let's look at how this unspoken love finally comes to light.
As the reality of his incredibly dramatic, pastry-fetching survival story finally sets in, the suffocating tension in the room just completely dissolves. Bipasha breathes this massive sigh of relief, but tears immediately flood her eyes. And this isn't just relief, it's raw, unfiltered anger born of deep, deep care. She tightly grips the letter, hits Ronak square on the chest, and cries out, "Are you crazy? What would have happened to me if something happened to you?" In our moment of sheer panic, her protective emotional wall has entirely crumbled. She just accidentally revealed exactly how deeply her life is tethered to his.
Ronak, realizing exactly what is happening in this beautiful moment, lets his smile grow just a little bit deeper. The source notes that he looked at her with a gaze containing, quote, all the love in the world. And rather than just comforting her right away, he actually gently teases her. He asks in this soft voice, "Why, Bipasha? What difference does it make?" See, he knows exactly what she's feeling, but he's gently pushing her to finally cross that line and just say it out loud.
So the crucial point is what happens next. She finally admits it. She grabs his hand and confesses that it matters because she couldn't say it before, but she feels the exact same way. And Raunaq's response? It is the ultimate payoff. He gently places a finger on her lips, completely silencing her worries, and delivers this absolute promise of devotion. I know. And now, I will never let you go anywhere. After all that fear, all that silence, the unspoken love is finally, beautifully, given a voice.
It's such a gripping narrative that resolves so wonderfully, but it really leaves us with a very real, very human application to ponder. Should we really wait for a crisis to confess our true feelings to the ones we love? I mean, why wait for a terrifying misunderstanding or a blood-stained letter to drop out of a diary? Life is incredibly fragile, and as Raunak and Bipasha learned the hard way, unspoken love is a really heavy burden to carry around. So think about who you might need to have an honest conversation with today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.